Hi. Rookie title? Yeah, I know. This video is about Wayfinder. If you don't know what Wayfinder is, it's an MMORPG that released sometimes in 2023 and it came out in early access and ended up being somewhat rough around the edges. But I suppose people were still excited for the full release, but sadly enough, Wayfinder's publishers decided to leave the project. I will not discuss the details, and the developers were simply left on their own. Now, the studio that made Wayfinder, they couldn't really single-handedly deliver an MMORPG with the servers and whatnot, so instead, they kind of scrounged up the game and made a looter RPG game with action combat, and you had a choice to play co-op with your friend. So I played the early access of the game when it released, and I thought the game was okay. It was fine, right? It had potential, and I looked forward to it, releasing fully. But it turned into kind of a mess with the whole studio and the publisher, and after that, I didn't really expect much from the game at all. But then it fully released as an action RPG with a loot system, and I thought, whatever, let's try it with a friend. So that's what I did. I played it with a friend. We played on the hardest difficulty, and well, it was about as I remembered gameplay wise. The game is alright. You play as different characters in this game, and depending on the character, you have different abilities. Think of it as like Overwatch or Warframe, something along those lines. You as the player have a passive, 3 abilities, and an ult as a kit for each character. And then you also have a set of universal weapons you can equip on any of the characters. So anyone can have a great axe or a great sword or daggers or sword and shield, right? Doesn't matter what character you're playing, you can have any weapon. The gameplay loop, well, it's fine. I did enjoy it a little bit, but I was playing with a friend and I think that did a lot of heavy lifting, but it's very, very repetitive almost off the gate. You take a quest and you either explore the open world to finish it, or you go into a dungeon and you clear the dungeon and that's how you finish the quest. There are also dungeons with only boss fights. That's kind of cool, but it's simply you go into a dungeon, boss fight, go up. And the boss fights are pretty cool. I don't mind them too much. They're interesting, they're fun, but kind of simple stuff. We played on the hardest difficulty and it really didn't feel that hard after getting our first pieces of loot. Initially it was hard. We couldn't kill like even the most basic enemies at first. It took like several hits. But then we got some loot and we kind of started steamrolling quite fast. But there was a problem. We encountered a world boss and we could not beat him. We left him alone for several levels and came back just to get our asses handed back to us again. It turns out that the world skates with you constantly and that the boss was such an ass to fight that we had to cheese him as good as we could to simply beat him. We waited to revive and we were forced to die and we skipped the revive because you can give up and come back to the boss fight faster than you can revive, so we kind of had to cheese the boss like that. And we did notice there was a scaling setting that you can turn off and on. We saw it initially in the game when we were doing the difficulty, and I thought that it was actually on by accident or that I had turned it on without remembering. That's why the boss scaled. But then it turns out it wasn't on, it was actually off. And I turned it on and nothing changed and the boss was still scaling and it was really hard to do because the boss spawns like 50 ads, and that's not even a joke. It was so many ads in the boss room, it was insane. It felt completely unbalanced and it was kind of rough around the edge, at least in that boss fight. And you had to beat the boss to get a drop for a character. You couldn't get the character without doing that boss. I haven't played the game since I recorded the footage in the background. I've had other things to do and want to play, and it's not like my friend wanted to play the game either. We just, we were interested in Wayfinder initially when it first announced in early access, and we tried early access and it was kind of disappointing. So we tried the full release and it was also kind of disappointing. But I wouldn't say the game is bad per se. It was a mid experience for me and my friend, but maybe you'll see it differently. I definitely don't say don't give it a try. I would recommend you give it a try because it wasn't that bad. I just don't think it was a game meant for me. And maybe you like it, maybe you won't. I didn't think the combat was bad, again. It was interesting, it was fun, but it became very repetitive and very recycled. And it just, it didn't really do it for me. It probably went through a lot of development hell, which makes it hard for the game to realize its own identity. So that way the game is not really for me. It was kind of underbaked, but you know what? Maybe you might like it. So let me know in the comments what you think. And you know what? I'll see you in the next video.